This is Yuxiang Qie or Fish-fragrance Eggplant. The dish is a complex balance of tangy, savory, umami, and spicy flavors, and is an instant fix for bad appetite. This is a perfect companion to rice, and let's take a look at how we can make this at home. For this dish, you want young and fresh eggplants. When the eggplants are fresh, they should be firm and smooth to the touch, and under the stub, there should be a distinct ring of white color. If you didn't know, eggplants before they ripen are actually white, so what we're really picking for is really young eggplants. Now, if you can find really fresh Chinese eggplants, that would be amazing, but any eggplant should work. Before we get to the eggplants though, let's talk about some of the ingredients. Here we have minced garlic, some cilantro, and some red peppers. On the side, we want some chopped pickled chilies, ginger, and green onions. Now, if you can't find Chinese pickled chili peppers, you can try something that is nice and tangy and doesn't have a strong aftertaste from somewhere like Mexico. Something else I like to add is finely chopped doubanjiang, or spicy broad bean paste. If you can't find this, it's fine. But finely chopped, this adds a lot of color, depth, and umami to the dish. Now, to give the flavor some girth, we decided to add some minced pork and a little bit of lard. If you don't like these ingredients or you're vegan, just don't add them. It's fine. Now, eggplants have a distinct sort of grassy flavor, and when poorly prepared, they're just watery and bland. We're going to show you how to avoid that. Now, you want to remove the stem of the eggplant, and then we're going to do something called a rolling cut, or 滚刀 in Chinese. You cut your first wedge, and you just keep rolling and cutting the eggplant. The reason why you want to do this is this creates lots of sharp edges on the eggplant that you can dry up and crispen that helps the eggplant absorb flavor. This also creates lots of edges that are not on the skin side, which also helps the eggplant absorb even more flavor from the sauces. Okay, so for the sauce bowl, we're going to need about 20 or so grams of sugar. Then we're going to use a little bit of the juices from our pickles. This is really going to give it some interesting kick. And this is where the fishiness comes from, because it's preserved chilies. And then we're going to use some rice wine. You can use really nice rice wine or really, really crappy rice wine. It really doesn't matter. As long as there's not a distinctive flavor from it, you should be good. Yeah, just a little bit. And then we're going to use somewhere between 5 and 10 grams of black vinegar. Depends on what flavor and how strong your vinegar is. I'm going to use just a little bit. I'm going to use about 10 grams of soy sauce. And then to round it off, optionally, you can use some glutamic acid, use some Ajinomoto, use some MSG, whatever you want to call it. Just a tad. We'll give it some nice flavors. And then depending on how dark you want the sauce to look, if this doesn't look dark enough to you, you can use a little bit of dark soy. Now, our dark soy is not very dark, so I'm going to use quite a bit, but add it to taste. Is that it might need just a tad bit more sugar. And a touch more vinegar. It's not quite sour enough for my taste. I think there's a little too much soy sauce in it. We should be good. Right, so we're going to quickly fry off the eggplants. Now, you don't actually have to fry the eggplants. If you want to, you can bake it until it's dry. You can even microwave this in a microwave-safe bowl and wait until like the edges are a little bit brown and dried. But we're going to fry it because it's quicker and I really like the slightly fried flavors. Now, we're going to fry this until it's slightly browned. The reason why we do this is we want to get rid of all of the liquids in the vegetable before we cook it. This will allow it to absorb the sauce instead of becoming this watery, grassy flavor. It's really important that if you use a microwave or an oven, you also get nice brown edges, and it'll be nice and dried up like this. Now, if you do this correctly with the correct oil temperature and you let the oil temperature rise as you're frying, the eggplants will not be oily when they come out. Now, you can save the oil that you fried the eggplants in to reuse for other dishes. That's the precise reason why we didn't add salt or marinate the eggplants in anything or coat it in starch. This way you can reuse the oil. Once your eggplants are golden brown and nice and dry, you can take them out. Now, we're using an induction hob just like most of you will be in North America or Europe. So the first thing we want to do is just melt the lard and cook out the doubanjiang. Now, you want to take your time with this because it really does not get hot enough for it to release all of its flavors quickly otherwise. Now, you want the doubanjiang to release all of its fragrance. You should smell it and the oil should turn a nice reddish color. Now, depending on what meat you have choices on how much you want to cook it off. If you're using something like beef, you might want to cook it out for really long until it releases all of its oils and it becomes nice and crumbly. If you're using pork or chicken, you might prefer to have it still a little bit soft so it returns nice, juicy umami flavors. Doesn't really matter, but it's your choice. Okay, this is what we ended up with. Because we're using pork, we didn't cook it all the way until it's dry. We want it to retain some nice, juicy textures and umami. Now we're going to add the green onion, ginger, and pickled chilies. We're going to add all of it and stir fry it until it again releases all of its fragrance. As soon as you can smell it, it's ready. After you smell it, you can add in your eggplants. You want the eggplants to fully combine with all of the oils released from the doubanjiang, and then you can add your bowl juices. We're going to add our bowl juice, and then because there is some undissolved salt and sugars on the bottom, we're going to add a little bit more water, dissolve all of it, and add it in. You want the bowl juice to reduce with the eggplant. You want to cook the eggplant in the juices for a little bit. It'll slowly absorb all of the delicious flavors and become a nice and gooey sort of thick sauce. It's important at this stage to taste the sauce and see if you like the sweetness. For us, it wasn't quite sweet enough, so we added a little bit more sugar in. This happens a lot because sugars taste different, salt will taste different, and so you want to trust your tongue and not your measurements. We also added in some starch slurry, which we combined in to thicken the sauce. It's important that you do this again by eye and not by measurement. You want to do it until the juices and the sauce hugs the eggplant nicely. So the eggplants will be coated with an even layer of sauce and you can pick up the juices with the sauce alone. Now, before the dish comes out, you want to add just a little bit of oil on top of the eggplant. This will allow the sauce to be brighter and get that sheen that Chinese restaurants have. Their secret is just a little bit of oil right before your sauce and your eggplant comes out. Okay, and we're done. After you add the garnish on top, we are ready to eat. The reason why we call it the Fish-fragrance eggplant or Yuxiang refers to the fact that the dish is cooked with the aromatics that are typically found when cooking fish in Sichuan. Now, this dish is typically served with a bowl of steamed rice, but also goes really, really well over broad and thick noodles. This dish is a complex combination of tangy, spicy, sweet and sour, and savory flavors. Try it at home. We hope you enjoy. Oh, also follow us on Instagram.